You know how some families have a golden child? Yes, mine had a golden brat. My younger sister Bella had been spoon fed attention and validation since birth. She had been covered in bubble wrap. She's what happens when two people raise a kid with the belief that her feelings are the center of the solar system and that anyone else's life events threaten her self-esteem. She wasn't always unbearable, I'll give her that. But once puberty hit and the compliments shifted to other girls, she started treating every woman in the room like an open competition. You wore a dress to a family dinner? She'd coincidentally spill red wine on it. Got a new job? She'd cry in the bathroom about feeling directionless. Brought a boyfriend home? She'd flirt with him right in front of you. Then tell your parents she was just being friendly. They lapped it up every single time. Apparently, Bella wasn't spoiled. She was just sensitive, misunderstood, fragile, a delicate, blooming orchid of a girl who couldn't handle conflict, boundaries, or anyone else getting attention that wasn't hers. So when I got engaged, I knew there'd be some drama. I just didn't expect a full-blown campaign to guilt-trip me into a secret wedding like I was a mistress or some Game of Thrones side wife. My fiancé, Jay, proposed last winter. Simple, romantic, no public flash mob or engagement skywriting. Just us on a snowy hike, a picnic, and a ring he spent months picking out. It was the most peaceful moment of my life. That peace lasted exactly one day. Because by the time we told my parents, Bella had already started crying. Not soft, happy tears. Meltdown tears. She ran to the bathroom halfway through dinner, wailing about how hard it is watching everyone move forward and how some people just get everything. She didn't say my name, but I was literally the only one who got engaged that day, so I'm going to take a wild guess and say I was the main character in that tantrum. I sat there, jaw clenched, while my parents did the usual coddling routine. My mom rubbed Bella's back and whispered that she was still so special and her time would come. My dad looked at me like I should be apologizing for being proposed to. I waited and gave them a week to cool off. Maybe they just needed time to process. Maybe they'd realized this wasn't a personal attack. Nope. Instead, they invited me to lunch and dropped their unreasonable request. They said, and I quote, "It would be better for the family if you kept the wedding private. Maybe just a courthouse signing. Bella's been very emotional and it wouldn't be fair to make it a spectacle right now." A spectacle. They used the word spectacle to describe my wedding, like I was planning to show up on a parade float with doves exploding out of my bouquet. I blinked, trying to understand if I was being punked. They kept going and said Bella was barely hanging on after her last breakup, which she caused by sleeping with her boyfriend's best friend. But I digress. And it would be cruel to have a big celebration when she's in such a vulnerable state. My response? So let me get this straight. You want me to scrap the one day I've dreamed of since I was 15 because your adult daughter might get jealous? They said I was being selfish. Jay asked if I was okay after we left. I wasn't. But I told him I was fine because I didn't want to start crying in the middle of a Cheesecake Factory parking lot. The rage was bubbling, but I needed time to decide how I wanted to handle this. Was it worth causing a family rift? Should I just go along with it to avoid conflict? And then, like the universe wanted to answer that for me, I accidentally overheard Bella bragging to one of her friends on FaceTime the next week. I walked into my parents' house unannounced. They still have a spare key for emergencies. And there she was in the kitchen, phone on speaker, laughing. She said, and I quote, "Yeah, she agreed to tone it down. I guess she finally realized I'd upstage her anyway." Her friend laughed and said, "You always win." And Bella, she said, "Of course I do. She's the backup daughter." Oh, okay, so that's how it is. Let's just say that was the moment I decided I would not only be having the wedding of my dreams, I would be throwing the biggest, boldest, most unforgettable bash this family has ever seen. Think elegant venue, designer dress, chandeliers, open bar, and enough flowers to give every allergy sufferer within a 10-mile radius a panic attack. I told Jay that night, and his response, "It's about time." God, I love that man. So now we're planning the wedding we actually want. The kind with music and dancing where I won't have to walk on eggshells for someone who throws a tantrum when the world doesn't orbit around her emotions. I sent out the save the dates last week to everyone except my parents and Bella. Let them hear about it from a cousin. Because if they wanted me to disappear for the sake of their golden weed, then I'll do exactly that. Just with cake and a 5-piece jazz band. Date 1. I knew they'd find out eventually. The only surprise was that it took this long. Apparently, it was Aunt Leela who blew the lid off it. She'd gotten her save the date and immediately called my mom, gushing about the venue, the dress code, how excited she was for a vineyard wedding by the ocean. She said she didn't even know we were planning something so grand and asked if she could bring her best friend and her son along too. I'm told my mom went quiet for a full 20 seconds and then hung up with the grace of a dial tone. The fallout came quickly. First, a missed call, then a 13-line message that read like a rejected telenovela script. She said I had disrespected the family, betrayed my sister, that I was selfish, attention hungry, and that I had brought shame to the house. Then came the cherry on top. She said we needed to talk. Dinner tomorrow, 7 sharp. Jay saw the message and asked if we should bring popcorn, so we went. Not to grovel, obviously. I don't do groveling. I went because I wanted to look them in the eye and hear them say it out loud. That my life wasn't mine to live. That it existed in service of Bella's feelings. Bella was already on the couch when we arrived, buried in a blanket like she was recovering from a Victorian-era illness. She barely glanced up and just offered a soft little sigh like I'd personally stabbed her with my wedding invitation. My dad didn't even bother with pleasantries. He got right to the point and asked what exactly I was trying to prove with this wedding. I said it was proof that 2 adults in love could celebrate without first checking whether Bella had enough emotional stability points saved up. He didn't laugh. My mom jumped in saying the venue and guest list were excessive. Looked like I was trying to make a statement. I told her I absolutely was. I was making a statement that said, "I'm done." Bella spoke up then, saying I was doing all this just to hurt her, that I was twisting the knife. I turned to her and told her this wasn't about her, that her being hurt was just a side effect, not the goal. And the fact that it wasn't about her at all, that was probably the part eating her alive. My dad cut in and said I needed to stop. His tone was sharp, like that would suddenly make me obedient. I asked why. Because I was finally saying the things they didn't want to hear? Because I was done being the family's emotional punching bag? Carefully avoiding anything that might set Bella off? My mom told me Bella was going through a hard time, that I had no idea how much she was hurting. I asked her which hard time we were referring to. The one where Bella stalked her ex? crashed his birthday party and keyed his car after getting caught going through his phone? Or the fake pregnancy one, because frankly, I was starting to lose track. Bella stood up then, called me bitter, said I couldn't stand that she got attention. I told her she got attention the same way a fire alarm gets attention. Loud, disruptive, and everyone just wants it to stop. My dad slammed his hand on the table and said that if I went through with this wedding circus, I shouldn't expect them to show up, that they wouldn't acknowledge it, that I was humiliating the family. So I said good, that they shouldn't come. It would ruin the mood anyway. My mom's jaw tightened. She said I'd regret this. I said only if they showed up, and that I'd already made sure their names weren't on the guest list. Bella let out a noise that was somewhere between a gasp and a sob, then stormed out of the room. As usual, probably hoped someone would chase after her. No one moved. Back home, Jay poured me a glass of wine and asked if I was okay. I told him I was better than okay. I finally felt like I'd ripped the emotional tape off a wound I didn't know was still bleeding. They thought they were punishing me, that by refusing to acknowledge my wedding, they'd somehow ruin it. But all they did was give me the space to build something without them. Something free of guilt. Emotional landmines and a sister who couldn't handle not being the center of every damn event. Let them talk. Let them stew. Because I had a dress to fit into, vows to write, and a guest list that actually liked me. And this time, Bella wasn't invited. Update 2. It turns out planning a wedding is a lot more fun when you're not constantly factoring in the emotional instability of a full-grown adult who can't stand not being the main character. Once I cut my parents and sister off the list, everything moved like a dream. Venue? Booked. Dress? Custom. Playlist? A perfect mix of romantic and petty. The walk down the aisle song is literally called Goodbye to You. A subtle nod, of course. I'm classy like that. Jay and I even made a wedding page. We added goofy bios, engagement photos, and RSVP links. Nothing over the top, just something that screamed we're actually happy. Naturally, word started spreading like wildfire between cousins, family, friends, and distant relatives who can't mind their business. It was only a matter of time before it reached the Holy Trinity, Mother, Father, and Bella. A week later, I got a cryptic text from my cousin who lives 3 states away. Girl, whatever you did, it's working. Your mom called my mom crying about how it looks. How it looks. Not how it feels, not how I feel, just optics. Apparently their big worry now was that the family was starting to whisper. That people were wondering why my parents were skipping my wedding while posting "family is everything" quotes on Facebook like they weren't the blueprint for emotional hypocrisy. And that's when the sabotage began. Subtle, petty, weak sabotage. The kind that would almost be funny if it weren't so painfully on brand. It started with my aunt. She sent me a message saying she regretfully couldn't make it to the wedding because she didn't want to be caught in the middle of a family split. She added a smiley face at the end like that would somehow soften the cowardice. Then came the florist drama. The florist we hired, someone my mother recommended years ago, suddenly cancelled without explanation. When I followed up, her assistant said she'd been advised it would be in her best interest to decline certain events. You'd think I was organizing a cult initiation instead of a wedding. I didn't even get mad, I just got even. Found a better florist. Triple the cost, double the style. I sent a photo of the new bouquet mock-up to my cousin and she accidentally let it slip into the family group chat. Whoops. Jay asked if I wanted to confront my parents, call them out. I said no. Why waste energy when I could channel it into something far more productive, like guest favors shaped like a golden couple? We were 2 months out. The wedding page views had tripled. The RSVPs were rolling in, and apparently Bella had gone on a full Instagram unfollow spree. She blocked every extended family member who posted anything remotely positive about our wedding. Cousin Tanya got unfollowed for posting a boomerang of her bridesmaid dress. Uncle Raj got blocked after resharing our engagement photo with the caption, "Finally, a couple that makes sense." Bella apparently was spiraling. Which brings me to the next sabotage attempt. Jay's mother, who is lovely, but unfortunately the type who thinks all conflicts can be solved with a nice talk over tea, got a call from my mother. She said she just wanted to chat, clear the air, be adults. I warned her it was bait. Jay warned her too, but she said she'd hear her out. That woman came back from the coffee shop looking like she had aged a year in 90 minutes. She said my mother spent the entire time trying to guilt her into talking sense to Jay. That she sobbed about how she and my dad had always tried to raise two daughters equally, news to me, and how my wedding was a knife to the heart. Said it would mean everything if Jay could convince me to cancel it and go back to the family plan. The family plan is make Bella feel better by erasing myself. Jay's mom said she smiled politely, told her it wasn't her place, and left before she punched a hole in the cafe's to-go cup display. I sent her flowers the next day. She deserved them. At this point, I stopped being angry. I started feeling something else. Pity. Not for Bella. She was living for the drama, but for my parents, because they truly honestly believed that cutting me out would break me. That I'd be crawling back, desperate for scraps of approval. Instead, they would have to watch me build something real, something joyful without them. And now, with the wedding weeks away, they were watching the narrative slip completely out of their hands. Relatives weren't taking their side. People were starting to talk about the favoritism, about Bella's history, about the way they always asked others to bend so she wouldn't break. It was unraveling, and I hadn't even lifted a finger. I was too busy finalizing the seating chart and approving signature cocktails. The only thing I did do, and I'll admit this fully, was personally write the email to the DJ with one special request. I told him to play one specific song at the exact moment Jay and I entered the reception. Gloria Gaynor's "I Will Survive." Petty? Maybe. But after years of shrinking, sidestepping, and getting steamrolled to protect everyone else's feelings, it felt damn good to stand in the center of my own story, even if they couldn't stand it. Update 3. The wedding day arrived, and to no one's surprise, my parents didn't show. No teary-eyed entrance, no begrudging seat in the back, no last-minute apology or surprise redemption arc, just silence. The kind of silence you'd expect from people who couldn't stand the fact that their daughter was getting married without making her sister the sun and the moon of the occasion. And honestly, that silence was golden. It was peaceful, liberating. I woke up feeling exactly how I'd hoped to feel, like the main character of my own life, not some supporting actress in the tragedy of Bella. Jay was calm, collected, and grinning ear to ear the entire morning. He didn't even flinch when we got the final RSVP update, confirming that not a single one of my immediate family members had changed their mind. I guess by that point, we both knew the odds of them showing up ranked somewhere between unlikely and not without a camera crew and a sob story. But someone else did show up. and he brought the chaos with him. The ceremony was done, photos were taken, cocktails were flowing. Jay and I had just walked into the reception. I will survive because, yes, I stuck with that plan. And no, I don't regret it. When my cousin Tanya pulled me aside with a stunned look on her face, she said someone unexpected had arrived and wasn't on the list. I asked if it was Bella. She shook her head and said it was someone worse. My Uncle Greg. Now, for context, Uncle Greg is my mom's older brother, a man who rarely shows up unless there's gossip to collect or drama to light on fire. He's that relative who always looks like he knows something you don't, and delights in dropping emotional bombs at the worst possible moment. And sure enough, there he was, wearing a blazer 2 decades too small, holding a drink, and grinning like the cat who'd eaten the entire family tree. I walked up and asked what he was doing here. He said he just wanted to congratulate me, that family was family and he wasn't about to miss the event of the year. I didn't buy it. Uncle Greg doesn't show up unless he's got a motive. He didn't even respond to the RSVP. I asked what he really wanted. He smirked and said he had a gift for me, then pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. It was from a private Facebook group, a screenshot of a message my mom had sent to some extended family members trying to coordinate a healing dinner on the same night as my wedding. Apparently her latest plan was to host a little gathering for family unity and emotional closure, as she called it. Said it was important to create space for Bella's feelings during such a difficult time. A difficult time, me getting married. The kicker? She had framed it like I had refused to invite them, that I had deliberately gone out of my way to exclude the entire family and had weaponized the wedding against those who love me most. I stared at the screenshot, looked through the comments. Some relatives expressed concern, others ate it up. One even wrote that it was a shame how entitled some daughters became after finding a man. Uncle Greg said he thought I should know. Said he wasn't taking sides, which, translated from Greg speak, means he absolutely was taking sides but wanted the credit of being neutral. I thanked him for showing me. He asked if I was going to say anything. I said no, why bother? This was the same script they'd been using my whole life. Make me the problem, turn my milestones into personal attacks, paint me as cold, bitter, selfish, anything but nice. I left Greg at the bar and went back to the party. But it didn't stop there, because apparently someone else from that secret dinner group, possibly one of the more fence-sitting cousins, decided enough was enough. By the end of the night, I got tagged in a post that was already gaining traction among the extended family. It was a photo of me and Jay arm in arm, both of us smiling under the string lights on the vineyard patio. The caption read, "She didn't exclude anyone. They just couldn't handle not being the center of it all. Proud of you, girl." Comments flooded in, distant relatives, old neighbors, even some of my mom's friends. Most of them said the same thing. They had no idea the story was being twisted, that they'd been misled, that Bella's feelings had become the family's excuse to treat me like a disposable placeholder. And just like that, the public image they clung to started slipping. No big speech, no confrontation, just a single post and a truth too heavy to keep buried under Facebook filters and fake dinners. Jay and I danced into the night. I didn't think about Bella, or my parents, or the drama they tried to brew behind closed doors. All I could think about was how peaceful it was to finally let go of people who only loved me on a technicality, and how sometimes the best revenge isn't yelling louder. It's living well and letting them sit in the silence they created. Update 4. It's been a year. 1 year since I got married without them. 1 year since my mother tried to rebrand emotional neglect as healing dinners. And Bella tried to gaslight our entire extended family into believing I had excommunicated her for being too sensitive. 1 year since I danced in a vineyard with people who actually liked me, while my biological family sat in a dining room across town with paper plates and plastic cutlery, pretending that my joy was some kind of war crime. It's been quiet since then. Quiet in the way people get when their favorite scapegoat stops playing along. No drama, no updates. Just the occasional breadcrumb from a cousin or aunt, like reminders that they were still watching from behind the curtain. Apparently, Bella dyed her hair pink again. That usually signals the start of her reinvention arc, which comes after a failed relationship or a meltdown at work. I'm told she rage quit her last job after being asked to share a project spotlight with a co-worker. Shocking. My parents, meanwhile, have maintained what I lovingly refer to as selective estrangement. They cut me off, yes, but only in the moments where it suits their victim narrative. Publicly, they act like I ghosted them. Privately, I know they ask about me all the time. Aunt Leela told me that my mom keeps printed photos of me and Jay from the wedding. The same one from my cousin's post tucked away in the drawer. She takes it out sometimes when no one's around. I should feel something about that. Sadness maybe, nostalgia. A tug at my better nature, but honestly, all I felt was indifference. That photo wasn't proof of love. It wasn't proof of what they missed out on, what they chose not to show up for, and what they tried to sabotage. Their absence became the final edit to the narrative that controlled my whole life. And without their voices constantly in my head, I found something better. My own. Jay and I moved into a townhouse just 2 months after the wedding. Cozy kitchen, tall windows, a little backyard I've turned into my garden, hydrangeas, lavender, and a rose bush because it looks pretty but stabs you if you get too close. He's still the same man I married. Patient, grounded, the kind of person who holds eye contact when he tells me he loves me and means it every time. We cook on Sundays. We slow dance in the kitchen. We make plans without fear of family politics or who might get emotionally triggered by the audacity of us being happy. It's been good, better than good, which is probably why it was so jarring when my mother emailed me. Yep, emailed like it was 2003 and she just discovered the internet. It was short, formal, carefully worded to sound warm but emotionally guarded, like she wanted to open a door without actually taking responsibility for having slammed it shut. She said she hoped I was doing well, that she'd been thinking about things and wanted to reconnect in the spirit of healing. She mentioned Bella was going through a difficult period and it had been hard on all of us. Then she hit me with the line that made me laugh out loud. She said she hoped I wasn't still harboring resentment over the wedding. Resentment. As if this were about a bouquet or a seating chart. As if years of playing second fiddle to a sister whose only consistent trait was emotional volatility could be solved with a soft focus apology and some biased memories. Jay read the email and asked what I wanted to do. I said I'd sleep on it. Instead, I stayed up till 2 a.m. drafting my response. Not out of anger. I wasn't angry, but I wanted to be very, very clear. I said I wasn't harboring resentment. I was harboring boundaries. I told her that forgiveness isn't a rewind button and reconnecting isn't the same as rebuilding trust. That healing, real healing, requires accountability, not just reconvening when the fallout gets too inconvenient. And I told her that the door she chose to walk out of a year ago, it no longer leads back to the same place. I didn't hit send right away. I read it 3 times, slept on it, then sent it in the morning. She hasn't responded, and I don't think she will. A few weeks later, I saw Bella, completely by accident. I was at a bookstore downtown grabbing a coffee in the attached cafe. She walked in with a friend and didn't notice me until I turned around. She froze. I didn't. I nodded casually and went back to my drink. Her friend whispered something and they walked to the other end of the cafe. I thought that would be it, but a few minutes later, Bella came back, alone. She said I looked well. I said thanks. She fidgeted, then asked if I was really never planning to speak to them again. I said I didn't know, that it depended on whether they ever planned to stop rewriting history. She said she missed me. I asked if she missed having someone to blame for everything. She didn't answer. Then she asked if I'd seen the family group chat lately, the one I left a year ago. I told her no. She said they all talk about me more than I think. I asked if they ever talked to me. She didn't respond. Eventually, she said she was sorry. Not for anything specific, not for the years of favoritism, the meltdowns, the manipulation, just sorry in that vague, cowardly way people are when they hope the word alone will undo the damage. I nodded and said I hoped she was doing okay, and then I picked up my coffee and left. It's funny. A year ago, I thought closure would come from some big emotional reckoning. A family therapy session, a yelling match, a cathartic cry. But closure, it turns out, is just peace. Peace in knowing I no longer have to shrink myself to keep someone else comfortable. Peace in loving my life enough that I don't feel the urge to prove anything to people who never clapped when I succeeded. Peace in building something beautiful without them and not needing them to see it. That was never bitterness, it was freedom. And I've never felt lighter. Update 5. And just when I thought things might finally go quiet again, I got a letter. Yes, a letter, handwritten, blue ink, full cursive, like it was 1972 and he was writing to a pen pal on a gap year. From my dad this time. May found it in the mailbox and raised an eyebrow. It wasn't in an envelope, just folded and tucked into itself like some kind of sad origami apology. He said I didn't have to read it, that I didn't owe it to anyone. But I did read it, mostly because I wanted to know if he'd finally grown a spine, or at least learned how to spell accountability. The letter rambled, a lot of metaphors, bridges burned, time lost, wounds that needed mending. He wrote about missing me, said he wanted me to meet for lunch, just the two of us, to talk like adults. And for a moment, a very brief one, I imagined what the lunch would be like. Then I folded the letter, tucked it into the recycling bin, and poured myself a glass of wine. Because the truth is, I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. And being done feels like a hell of a lot better than being bitter. They chose their silence. I just learned how to live without the noise. Stay tuned for more stories from Our Girl Relationships.